During his last year in office, American President Dwight Eisenhower's primary goal was called a Crusade for Peace. He was the former Allied military commander during World War II and developed a friendship with Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, who also played a key role in the Allied victory. They had several friendly meetings and planned for a détente, resulting in deep cuts in military spending. A meeting was scheduled for May 14, 1960 in Paris, where a major disarmament agreement would be signed. Many powerful men in Washington, D.C. opposed peace, and 4 conspired to sabotage this agreement. 2 weeks before this meeting, they ordered an unauthorized U-2 spy flight over key bases in the center of the Soviet Union. Its pilot was captured after crash landing his aircraft because its fuel was sabotaged. This was revealed in a 1973 publication, The Secret Team, authored by retired U.S. Air Force Colonel L. Fletcher Prouty, who served from 1955 to 1963 in the Pentagon as a liaison officer and military resource provider to the CIA. The U-2 section worked across the hall from his Pentagon office, and he knew them well. Colonel Prouty's book describes why a U-2 spy plane was sent on an unscheduled and unauthorized mission just 2 weeks before a major peace summit that might end the Cold War. The U-2 was sabotaged so its engine quit and forced the pilot, Gary Francis Powers, to glide down for a crash landing. President Eisenhower didn't know that a U-2 had crashed, so denied Soviet claims that it had shot down an American spy plane until Powers appeared on Soviet TV. Eisenhower was shocked and embarrassed, but decided to accept blame rather than admit that he lacked control over U.S. military assets. This enraged Soviet Premier Khrushchev and ended Eisenhower's crusade for peace. Colonel Prouty didn't blame CIA Director Allen Dulles because he seemed unaware of this conspiracy. He said an angry senior general told him, quote, 4 guys were responsible. Colonel Prouty provided 3 examples that prove this U-2 crash was no accident. First, a presidential order was issued a month before the coming Paris Peace Conference that prohibited any flights near the Soviet Union to prevent incidents. He was overseeing a major CIA program to drop weapons and food to rebels in Tibet, and flights were suspended because they were near the Soviet Union. Second, Colonel Prouty explained that U-2 flights were covert CIA operations. If a U-2 crashed, deniability was the goal. U-2 pilots wore foreign-made flight suits with no pockets and were strip-searched to ensure they carried nothing special into the cockpit. After Gary Powers was captured, the Soviets publicized his military ID, driver's license, and other personal effects. Colonel Prouty said that was impossible, unless someone secretly planted those items in Powers' U-2. Third, the captured reconnaissance camera displayed by the Soviets from the crash was not the advanced U-2 camera, but an older model camera used by bombers. Whoever planned this incident didn't want the Soviets to obtain the U-2's sophisticated camera technology, so replaced it prior to Powers' flight. This case demonstrates how censorship thrives in the United States. Colonel Prouty is certainly a credible source of inside information on this incident. The examples he gives to support his case are excellent and verifiable. Prouty cited official public records where President Eisenhower and CIA Director Dulles stated that Powers' U-2 was not shot down. It crash-landed. The Soviets claimed to have shot it down to promote their air defenses, but photos of the downed U-2 show it mostly intact. The CIA had assured political leaders that U-2 pilots could never be captured or identified and gave them a suicide syringe just in case. As a result, U-2 pilots suspected the ejection handle was really a self-destruct trigger, so Powers thought it best to glide down for a safe landing. Despite his book and interviews, linked below, Colonel Prouty's tale of the U-2 incident never appears in other books or articles about the U-2 incident, which falsely state Powers was shot down. His premise that powerful peoples subverted the American president to thwart global peace is off limits in the United States, so discussion of his facts are not permitted. President Eisenhower was willing to discuss this event. Several months after a sabotaged U-2 sabotaged his crusade for peace, he warned Americans during his final national telecast.
Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals.